I can't even believe that I'm about to tell this story right now. I'm gonna tell you guys this story about the lengths and the depths that somebody went to try to get free beats and studio time. But first, this is the intro. So I wasn't gonna tell this story because I don't know why, I just felt bad. I felt bad for telling the story because I don't want to put this person on blast, but I'm not gonna use their real identity. Nobody knows who they are. There's no way you're gonna figure out who it is. And they might see this video, but I'm not saying anything that isn't true. That is my disclaimer. Please don't think I'm mean. So for those of you who don't know, I am in a duo with my cousin slash twin slash best friend, Kasairi. So this story begins at our church. So normally on Sundays, I'm upstairs in the sound booth because I actually do the sound. And then my brother is also up there because he does the screens. And Kasairi's usually downstairs because she's on the praise team. Almost every Sunday after church, we go and get something to eat or we go and get coffee or something because we usually have to come back for praise team rehearsal. And since I do the sound, I attend rehearsal as well. So on this particular Sunday, church ends and my brother and I are upstairs as usual, and I usually start looking at Kasairi to kind of gauge if she's in a hurry, she wants to hurry up and go, or if she's kind of just chilling, or if she's waiting for us, or if she's gonna go to the car or something like that, just to make sure that we're on the same page and stuff like that about where we're gonna go after. But my brother and I are usually upstairs for a good 5 to 10 minutes while we wait for most of the congregation to clear out, and for just to make sure that we have everything in order up there and break everything down that we need to break down and stuff. So probably a couple minutes had passed and I looked downstairs and I saw that Kasairi was actually talking to somebody, and I just glanced and I didn't know who the person was, but I thought that it might be one of her cousins on her mom's side. Spoiler alert, it was not. So I think my brother asks me oh, where's Kasairi? And I'm oh, she's downstairs, she's talking to somebody. I think it's one of her cousins or something. So I did everything I had to do upstairs, and it was probably a good maybe 7 minutes or something like that, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. 7 just seems like a good number. So it was probably a good 7 minutes that she was down there talking to him before I finished up everything I had to do and I went downstairs. So I go downstairs and I walk over to her and she's still talking to this guy, and let's just call him Napkin, and it'll make sense later. Naps for short. So she's talking to this guy. So I walk over and she's Bree, this is Naps. And so I'm hi. And he's I met you guys. And I was you did? And he was yeah, I watched your YouTube videos last night. And I was oh, okay. I'm super awkward, that's why I'm laughing. So then Kasairi's he does music. And he was yeah, I watched your guys' YouTube videos and I was watching your production videos, and I just think that your style's really cool and your system and stuff like that, your process is really cool. And he was just kind of complimenting my production and stuff like that. And I was thanks, that's really nice. So Kasairi's he's coming to lunch with us today. And I was just oh, okay. A little weird because we don't know him, but whatever. Sometimes she's just really nice and welcoming to people, and so I just try to go along with it, even though I'm super introverted and usually exhausted on Sundays. But trying to show the love of the Lord, try to be nice, So I didn't really think much of it. It was just oh, okay, he's coming to lunch with us. So my brother then comes downstairs and we're ready to go. And I think she might have introduced him to my brother real quick too. And then we start walking out the door, we're walking to the parking lot. And he had already talked to Kasairi for a bit, so she kind of got his backstory and stuff like that. But I don't know this guy, right? We're walking to the car and he's kind of explaining to me that he's from New York, but he moved out here to LA, and I'm just oh, cool, that's really cool. So Kasairi's gonna be the one driving us, so my brother and I are walking toward her car, and Naps asks is it okay if I come with you guys, or should I drive myself? And I was oh, twin, is it okay if he comes with us? And she was yeah. So he was okay. So we get in Kasairi's car and she's driving. My brother's really big, so he's always gonna be the one to sit in the front seat. So that leaves me and Naps in the back seat, which is probably not a big deal to most people, but I'm just a little bit weird about first meeting people. I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, and stuff like that. But it's whatever, I'm in the back seat with him. Then I kind of asked him oh, so how did you find out about our church, or how did you end up coming here? And he's oh, and we'll call him Jesse. He's Jesse told me. And I was oh, and he was yeah, Jesse told me that you guys do music and stuff like that, so I just started looking you guys up last night, and I was just watching all of your videos, and I was just oh, okay. So then I was oh, so have you been going to another church or something like that? And he was just oh, I've been visiting different churches in LA and stuff like that. And he started naming some of the bigger, more popular churches and things. And then he's yeah, I went to this church and after service one time I met Justin Bieber. And then he's like, we were gonna actually work on music together, but then COVID happened. And at that point, like, I didn't even know like what to say. The fact that you're name dropping within like the first 5 minutes of me meeting you was like kind of off-putting to me. So yeah, he says him and Justin Bieber were gonna work on music, but then COVID happened. And I'm just kind of like, so then I like kind of changed the subject a little bit, still on the topic of music, but just kind of like away from like the Justin Bieber thing. So I asked him like, do you have any music out or anything like that? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, so do you like record music and you just don't put it out? He was like, I have a computer and I have the software and like a mic and an interface and stuff like that, but I've never opened it or set it up or anything because like I don't know how. And I was just like, okay. He was like, oh, so do you have a studio? And I was like, yeah, at my house, like I have a little home studio. And he was like, oh, so do you record your guys' music? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, want to record mine? I kind of laughed a little bit, but like I was kind of caught off guard, but I was just like, actually, I don't record other people. I think I might have said something like, I'm not gonna be having like random people come into my house. Like, I think it was something like that I said, which is true. But he kind of like laughed a little bit, and then I was like, you have a computer, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you have software? He was like, yeah. I'm like, you have an interface? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, you have a mic? He's like, yeah. And I was like, you have a studio? He kind of laughed a little bit again, and then he was just like, you know what, thank you, like I needed to hear that. Like, I don't know, I guess it was gonna give him the motivation to like actually put his studio together that he said he has. So then we pull up to where we're gonna get out and eat. It's kind of like a shopping center, so there's like different little food places, coffee shops and stuff like that. So we pull up to there, and I wanted to get like coffee from somewhere and food from somewhere else. My brother and Kesari ended up wanting to do the same thing. We all went to get our food, and then we came back to get our coffee, and I was like purposely kind of lagging to try to make sure that like I didn't end up alone with him anymore, because I just kind of felt like uncomfortable by the situation, because one, I don't know him, and two, he's name dropping within the first 5 minutes of me knowing him, and he's asking to come to my studio for me to record him when I don't know him. But of course, as we're waiting for Kesari and my brother to get their coffee and everything else, he and I end up at the table first. So we're sitting outside and it's just me and him, and I think I started asking him like, so what kind of music do you do? And he never really explained. I think he was just saying that him and like, I think he said like his friend or something like performed somewhere in New York, and his friend played like live instrumentation and he like rapped over it or something like that, I think is what he said. And he was like, yeah, and it was so amazing and the performance was so moving, but like we didn't get it on video. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then the conversation like continued on and stuff, and I don't remember the full conversation because this was like a little while ago. But at some point, I remember explicitly him being like, I know I'm talented. And I was just like, so then my brother ends up coming to the table, Kesari ends up coming to the table, and we're just like having conversations about different things. My brother's like kind of telling stories, but he's also like kind of on his phone and not like fully paying attention to like everything that's going on at the table. So I was eating a sandwich and the bread was like really toasted, so like I kept spilling crumbs like all over my lap and stuff like that. But we were like sitting outside and I was wearing jeans, so like it wasn't really a big deal. And I kept like dusting off my lap, like just regular stuff. And so we're just like talking and stuff, and then all of a sudden, like kind of out of my peripheral, like I kind of see that Naps is like, he unfolded a napkin and he's like putting it in my lap, like, so I kind of see it and I was just like, oh, thanks. But it was like really weird. Like, who does that? Who does that to somebody they don't know? Like, what? So Kesari sees it and she thinks it's weird. She's kind of looking like to see how I'm gonna react, but I didn't do anything. I just was like, oh, thanks. But like, I really said it like that. Like I did say it like I was bothered, because it was weird. I felt like kind of violated. I know it's like dramatic, but like I kind of felt like a little violated because like I don't know you. So we carry on with the conversation, you know, we're talking about different things, and like at some point the wind kind of like blew the napkin off my lap and I kind of picked it up and like balled it up. And this dude, Naps, gets another napkin and like tries to do it again, and I saw him like get the napkin, so I like took it out of his hand. And okay, I need to give you guys an example because this was crazy. So he has another napkin, right? And I take it out of his hand and he's like holding onto it like he doesn't want to let it go. And so I grab it out of his hand and I'm just like, I got it. And I just like, you know, put the napkin in my own lap, but I'm like completely weirded out by this whole situation. It's like super uncomfortable because Sayuri can tell it's uncomfortable for me. She could tell it was uncomfortable for me from the jump, but she can tell it's uncomfortable for me. So she's just like kind of looking like, okay. We keep talking and stuff. And my brother was not paying attention. So he did not see any of this. He keeps talking and telling stories and stuff like that. My brother does. So like he starts talking, he's like telling stories and stuff like that. But it's almost time for us to go because we have to go back to the church for rehearsal. And at some point, Naps, he starts like, I don't know, like saying something about like, oh, you know, people just aren't like used to somebody being nice to them, or like he says something like that. He didn't use those exact words, but that was definitely like the sentiment of what he was trying to say. In my mind, I'm like, oh gosh. So I try to kind of like make the situation not weird. Like I just kind of start thinking like, you know, just what would make sense, like why would somebody kind of like be like this? And so like I asked him like, are you an oldest sibling or something? And he was like, no, actually I'm the youngest, but I didn't really grow up with my siblings, so like I'm kind of an only child, so it was just like me and my mom. But you know, I guess my mom just raised me to be a gentleman. Like which part of name dropping to somebody within the first 5 minutes of knowing them, asking them to record your music, putting a napkin in their lap when you literally don't know them, and trying to do it again when they're obviously not comfortable with you doing that, like which part of that is a gentleman? Which part of that is gentlemanly? We start getting up from the table, we're throwing our trash away. Kasari and my brother are headed to the car. And so driving there, I sat behind Kasari and Naps sat behind my brother. So I figure we're just gonna sit in the same spots. So Kasari's car is parked next to another car. So I start walking to go and sit behind the driver's seat like I did on the way to the place. And Naps was like kind of behind me, but when I start to like walk in between her car and the car that's like parked next to it, he like starts walking faster, like he's like trying to walk next to me. And so like I stop because I'm just like gonna let him go in front of me, and he's like, oh no, you go ahead. So I start walking, and every time I start to walk, he starts walking, like walking next to me, and the space is not that big. It's like, you know, whatever, like a space between two cars, so like there's not really like room for two people to walk side by side next to each other, you know, like in this little space. I was like, go, and he was like, no, you go. And so like I start going, and he starts doing it again, and so like I stop again, and he's just like, go ahead. And at this point, I'm kind of just like, what the frick is going on? Like, what the frick are you doing? So I just think to myself, okay, let me walk really fast. I like start walking really fast, and he's like walking fast to like keep up with me because he like wanted to beat me to the door so that he could open the door for me. So I get in the car and he closes the door, and I'm just like done. I'm like completely done with this social interaction right now. So Kasari, because she peeped the whole situation, she starts laughing and she's like apologizing to me. She's like, I'm so sorry, twin, and you know, all this stuff. And my brother's like, what happened? Because he was not paying attention to any of this. And Kasari like kind of starts to tell my brother, but then Naps gets in the car, so she just like stops. We drove back to the church, and I don't remember saying anything on the way back. I don't know if I did or not, but I was completely like so uncomfortable with this whole situation, completely weirded out and everything else. We get back to the church, and I get out of the car, and I'm like headed toward the church. Kasari gets out, and Naps gets out of the car, and I didn't hear him, but he asked Kasari if he could stay for rehearsal. And Kasari was like, oh, actually only like the praise team and band members can stay for rehearsal. And he was like, oh, like I was just kind of wondering like if I could join the praise team. And she was just like, oh, and I don't remember what she told him. Whatever she told him, she was really nice about it. And I think she told him like he could talk to the band director next week or something like that. And so he was just like, oh, okay. So he was like gonna leave, and then he's like, hey Bree, is it okay if I get your number so like I can keep in contact with you? And I was just like, okay. So I gave it to him. Kasari later on was like, you gave him your number? And I was like, listen, he can hit me up all he wants. I don't have to hit him back. So that was that. Kasari spent the rest of the day like apologizing continuously and stuff like that and laughing at the situation, but she was apologizing and I was telling her, you owe me big time. So then the next Sunday comes and he's at church again. I didn't know until after service because I usually can't really tell who's there until after since I'm upstairs. So when I came downstairs, he was there. We said hi to him and stuff. And my aunt, she goes to the same church. So I was talking to my aunt and my cousin and he was kind of just like standing around. And after that, we left to go to eat and he left on his own. So he really didn't talk to us that Sunday. So that day or the next day, he DMs our Brie K and Kasari Instagram account. I saw the message like in my notifications and it says, "What are the chances you can make me a beat?" And I didn't open the message for like 4 days, but I really felt like that whole charade of him coming to the church in the first place, doing the name dropping, doing the napkin thing, trying to really big himself up as a gentleman, asking for free studio time. That whole charade was literally to try to get free studio time and like free beats. Like that's what that felt like to me. So I let the message sit for 4 days. I finally opened it and I messaged back and I just told him, I'm not doing custom beats at the moment because of my workload, but I do have my website where I sell beats with different licensing options if you want to check that out. It's thesearethesounds.com, where you can get this hoodie at, by the way. Which was the truth. That message was the truth. So he replied and was like, thank you, I'll check them out. I don't think I had opened the message or anything. And he sent another message like right after that and was like, would you like to get lunch after church on Sunday? And I didn't open that message. Neither of us opened that message because again, this is mine and Kasari's account. And like that whole week I was praying to God and I was just like, Lord, how do you want me to deal with this situation? Because old Brie would have just been mean. And I don't want to be old Brie. Like, I don't want to be mean. You know, I don't want to like crush anybody's like, you know, spirit or anything like that. So I was just like, Lord, how do you want me to handle this though? Because I do feel like he was extremely rude, in my opinion. He made me feel like super uncomfortable. So I was just like, Lord, what is the appropriate way to deal with this? And I was really praying that all week. And then when Saturday came, because it was the night before Sunday, I was like, okay, Lord, you deal with the situation, because I don't know how to. And then Sunday came and he was not at church. And then he actually never came back to the church. So I really feel like he came for the sole reason that Jesse told him that we do music, and he watched our stuff and saw that I make beats and that I record and stuff, and was thinking that he was gonna come up on an opportunity for free beats and free recording. And when that didn't happen, he dipped. He did message us one other time, like telling us about some sporting event or something like that that he was doing. But I opened it right now and we never messaged back. And we haven't heard from him or seen him since. So there is a possibility that Naps is watching this video. And if you are Naps, I didn't say your name. I didn't expose you or anything like that. Everything that I said was the truth. And if you want beats or something like that, again, thesearethesounds.com is available. So yeah, that was my story of the lengths and the depths that this person went to try to get free beats and free studio time. If there's a guy watching this video who's like, I don't see anything wrong with what he did, he was being a gentleman. It's not being a gentleman when you're trying to force your actions on somebody who is clearly uncomfortable because they do not know you, because they met you 15 minutes ago. I hope this story wasn't mean. It was nothing but the truth. Producers, artists, content creators, has anybody ever tried to get something for free from you? And what were the links that they went to? Please tell us your stories in the comments, because I cannot wait to read them. If you liked any of the beats that were playing in the background of this video, again, you can go to thesearethesounds.com. There are different licensing options for different projects and different types of artists and things, so go and check them out. If you like the hoodie that I'm wearing, it says this is the hoodie on it. You can also get this at thesearethesounds.com, and I will put the exact links in the description below. If you made it this far into the video, I think it's safe to say that you kind of liked it, so please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and click subscribe, especially if you have watched like 3 or 4 of my videos already. You may as well click subscribe. All right, well, I think that is everything. I can't believe I just told you guys all that. Okay, peace out.